And hello, Astro friends. Here's Melanie with the weather for the week. And what an eclipse week that was last week! So intense. Not only did we have the partial or penumbral lunar eclipse on May 5th, also in Scorpio, where the moon is the most intense, most challenged, because deep feelings come up, lots of power issues, lots of old grievances, all to be released. And we also had the Pluto turnaround just 4 days before on May the 1st on Beltane, and Pluto rules Scorpio. So lots of power issues came to the forefront and were also noticeable in the social environment, that's for sure. Also, Mercury has been and still is retrograde. So what kind of recipe is that? What kind of recipe is that for a coronation? I'm asking. I'm not going on about it here, but wondering whether they had an astrologer. Not that I want to be the royal astrologer, but it was quite striking that lots of planets at that time were actually in a really bad position. So the Sun, wonderful, fine in Taurus, but Mercury retrograde. Okay, so we're doing something, we're going over something again. That is an ancient ritual, and do we still need it? Then we have Uranus in Taurus, where Uranus is the most challenged and also the most, yeah, basically it's a disruptive energy of old traditions, of doing things the established way, and hard to move situations. The queen, the late queen, had her birthday on the first day of Taurus, and she was very stable on the throne. When Uranus came into Taurus in 2019, I was wondering, okay, what's going on with the Queen? And then stuff was coming up with Harry and Meghan, and who knows what else behind the scenes. Anyway, so now these established situations are not to be taken for granted anymore. Uranus in Taurus is shifting things back to the natural way, back to their natural order. And then we also had and still have Mars in Cancer. So where also Mars is the most challenged in the zodiac. So that lends itself to trouble in the family and trouble or anger or yeah, the real conflict in society around yeah, what do people really feel and need. Then we also had, of course, the moon in Scorpio, where all the stuff comes up. And yes, Charles has Scorpio sun. So he also, lots of, so much more than what meets the eye, concealing behind lots of control, lots of self-control. Yet also, as I said, Scorpio likes to look and needs to look behind the scenes, behind the curtain, and so on and so forth. That's about it for these. And also Pluto. Yes, Pluto also turned around on the first degree of Aquarius just on May the 1st, and will be now in Aquarius till June 11th. So also where Pluto is furthest apart from its place of exaltation, where Pluto was the strongest, is the strongest in Leo, which is also the generation born between 1939 and 1957, including Charles and Camilla. So that's a boomer generation, and that also was an era of lots of personal, having gone through so much in war and not being seen, not being loved in general, not speaking about the royals, right? So lots of people had to really come back to knowing and loving themselves fully and expressing themselves, catching up with the lost childhood. and but also very the power of humanity since that generation especially, and since the Second World War, the power to destroy, the power to dominate, the power to cause a lot of havoc and lots of shadow that needs to be seen and owned on a personal level. Hence, we also had a strong psychology movement emerging from that generation. So all these planets were not really at a happy place, and for all of us, a challenging week, and also for the royals, not, in my opinion, not the best time to schedule such an event if that event is appropriate at this time in any case. Now let's carry on with the astrology of this coming week. A lot is easing up now, which is great. You probably already felt it when the moon moved from Scorpio to Sag, so-called, or I call it the Phoenix point, Phoenix out of the ashes. There's more truth coming forward, more freedom, more movement of stuck energy after the eclipse, and all that happened on the weekend. Basically, that was Saturday afternoon and then Sunday, and today the moon's still in Sag until 4:33 p.m. Pacific. So the moon is still in Sag, currently in the galactic center. What is that? End of Sagittarius is the point that points from our Earth perspective to the center of the Milky Way galaxy, the so-called galactic center. Potentially, likely, we know it from science, there is a black hole, which I understand Google is ruling out now as a term. Not supposed to say that word anymore, it could offend somebody. Anyway, so I just said it. Thankfully, I'm not a famous YouTuber. So, now the moon is in the galactic center before she enters Capricorn, 4:33 p.m. this afternoon. And the moon goes through Capricorn until Wednesday evening, all Pacific here. Then in Aquarius, Wednesday evening, 7:05 p.m. until she enters Pisces on Friday already at 9:39 p.m. So the moon will be next weekend in Pisces. That's probably something you want to know. Weekend-wise, Pisces is a beautiful place for the moon. It's all about letting loose. It's about connecting, and it will be Mother's Day, so it's a beautiful time to connect, and also that on a human level also implies adapt. And that's what I did with the weekend plans for next week myself, with some Mercury retro situations coming up. Today I had 2 of them where it was super helpful to actually pick up the phone and talk to the person, to break the spell of messaging or emailing, because that lends itself to misunderstandings, to communication going astray, or even people losing touch with each other. So pick up the phone when you can, meet people in person or as directly as possible. How long is Mercury still retro? Until the 14th of May, next Sunday. And that is the technical turnaround on Sunday evening. But as always, Mercury will be still having this rollout effect of the retro phase. I call it also a U-turn from Earth's perspective, where Mercury is slowly coming into from backward to forward gear, and that takes a shift, right? So Mercury will be then in this direct U-turn mode, also the stationary mode, the storm mode, post-retro storm mode, until this time, for some reason, longer. Usually it's just it's a week maximum, but in this case, until the 25th of May. Okay, 11 days. And that's what my calendar says. And that is when Mercury starts to catch momentum and move a bit more faster forward, right? In Taurus the whole time, so also close to the Sun, now behind the Sun, but also close to Uranus. And that's a big theme this Taurus season. Mercury retro, Sun, Uranus. So what's with Sun Uranus? That's a big key feature for this week, because tomorrow is the day of the year when the Sun in Taurus passes Uranus. Okay, what does that look like? I should have shown you, could have shown you the chart. Why don't I show you the chart for the next new moon, which is also in Taurus, end of Taurus. Just here quickly to demonstrate that the Sun will be then, okay, so always like the mirror effect, right? The Sun will be then, Sun and Moon will be ahead of Uranus, right? So the Sun is now a little bit behind, but passes Uranus tomorrow and will be then in front of, ahead in the zodiac of Uranus. So what's that all about? This is a strong Uranus activation, energizing of what Uranus is about, which is freedom, sovereignty, independence, embodying freedom. What feels good in your body, in your senses, what brings you freedom, maybe to be more with Taurus, to be literally more in nature, be more on the land, do something related to plants, do some gardening, have good food, and something that appeals to your senses. All of that is Taurian. And experience a sense of freedom through that, a sense of elating energy, and yeah, it's a liberating spark. And also it has to do with breaking habits, right? So being proactive about that rather than having circumstances and events come to you that force you in a way to get out of your comfort zone. And yeah, so experiment with different ways of being, different ways of food, different ways of anything that appeals to your senses. And that's tomorrow. So in other words, also Uranus brings excitement and sometimes also exciting news, right? So that can be liberating, that can be also shocking, right? Uranus can be also manifesting as trauma and shocks, something like, whoa, what is this, right? It can be an eye opener that way, and a deal breaker, or anything that is a paradigm shift. So tomorrow and this whole week is under this influence, basically, right? And what gives renewed energy would be really the question, right? And what does it have to do from a Taurus perspective? Now I'm also going back to Mercury in Taurus. Mercury is still retrograde in Taurus. What does it have to do with values? What do you really value? And how can you be in do something that reflects that, right? Value yourself, value your joy, and what are the consequences of that? And yeah, also it has to do from a Taurus perspective with your own values that are really solid, not that rigid, but it's about standing your ground, right? And honoring yourself with your values, honoring what you are worth, right? And what your time and energy and all of that. Then we have, as I said, the Mercury turnaround is another important news of the week. That's pretty much it. Sun, Uranus, and Mercury turnaround. So that is always a time where the natural mind that is now more free from being so ego driven and so being in charge, right? So the mind can be so much the master and the magician and being in charge of your life. So the Mercury retrograde phase is the loop where Mercury has to step behind the Sun which represents spirit, consciousness, the heart, and that wants to be more the guiding principle. And at the same time, also, it's about letting nature speak to you and Mother Nature guide you rather than your mind habits. Now, the last piece I want to say regarding the planetary moves, and as we are in this whole Taurus terrain, literally, on May 16th, big news for Jupiter, because Jupiter will then leave Aries and go into Taurus. Yeah, that's big, right? So Jupiter is typically 1 year and a bit in a sign and hasn't been in Taurus then in 12 years. I haven't looked up exactly what the dates were. I haven't written the article for Jupiter in Taurus yet. And but it moves over what I call the settling point from Aries to Taurus. With Aries, there's a lot of action going on, a lot of it's an assertion also, and battling for life and for one's position, so to say, right? And it's all about spirit. It's all about something new emerging. Then with Taurus, it takes on form, right? Taurus is where spirit comes into matter. It's the first earth sign in the zodiac. And so that will be big. So it could be also a year where something that has been conceptualized, that has been pioneered in the last year, that had been sort of just the first sparks of life we've seen, and now it becomes really manifest. Whether it's a good thing or not, but Jupiter says it's a big thing. And it has to do, again, also with the earth, with nature, with values, also with money and economy. And Jupiter says there is more, and Jupiter is a big gaseous planet, so it could be also more inflation, in fact. Jupiter is literally the most inflated planet. And so Jupiter will be in Taurus until May 26, 2024, as I said, a year and 2 weeks or so. It's the positive side of Jupiter in Taurus is about cultivating gratitude, about the abundance, and about anything that is natural, organic, and what Mother Earth is about, what Mother Earth provides, and really doing something with that. Working with that is also the theme of early Taurus, because where Jupiter is in the first 3 months or so, because that has a Capricorn undertone. And Capricorn has to do with working with the earth and with nature. So a lot of opportunities. Jupiter says, okay, lots of it is here. How do you like it? Right? And so more to come in the next Astro News before that event, before that move of Jupiter into Taurus. Then what's going on now with the Taurus phase and decade? We're still in the second part, in the central part, which has the Taurus undertone until May 11th. And then we have the third and last part of Taurus, which has a Virgo undertone. And Virgo is about work, service, and application, right? Applying yourself so that you produce something that is useful and helpful and serves others. And also it's about alignment, it's about health. So it's a combination between joy and health. It's also, you could say, working with joy. So that central part of Taurus is all about joy and is all about enjoying life in spring as everything blossoms so beautifully. And then the last part of Taurus has to do with offering something of value, right? Again, Taurus. And that serves people, that is really helpful, and so on, and getting joy from that. Then we have the moon, as I said, waning moon now, Capricorn as of this afternoon, Aquarius, Pisces, and then Aries on Monday. Monday, the moon goes into Aries. So it's a relatively chill week, except for the Sun Uranus piece, compared to last week. That's for sure. So I hope you have a good integration of the eclipse, because that, of course, takes its time. It's not a one-time event as astronomers would present it in their paradigm. And these are shifts that want to help us really, again, to release redundant Scorpio energy, resentment, dark feelings that ultimately we turn against ourselves, and we don't need that. So it would be a good time now in the waning moon phase to do a purge, to do something symbolic, something, a ceremony, if you will, writing, journaling, anything that helps you release all the stuck, yucky energy in your basement, in your emotional basement, right? And maybe even a spring cleanse on a physical level would be a good one too. And so I'm wrapping up here, and I wish you well for this coming week. Thank goodness we came through the last, and now things can be a bit easier, and we also get an idea of this whole Mercury retro spiel and don't have to be basically subject to that trickery. Take care. Wish you well.